A teenager's dream to live happily with her new foster family is challenged when the couple also adopts another orphan whom she doesn't get along with. At a young age, Nica loses her parents in a car accident. As a result, she's brought to an orphanage where she meets the strict matron, Margaret, who introduces her to the 3 rules: order, respect, and obedience. When asked to hand over her personal belongings, Nica refuses to give up her butterfly necklace because it belonged to her mom. Because of this, the headmistress orders Rigel, her favorite orphan, to take it. As the girl sobs, the heartless matron points out that crying won't bring back what she lost. Shortly after, Adeline takes the orphan to her room, and from that day on, they become best friends. Years later, Nica's finally adopted. Before meeting her foster parents, the teenager entrusts her pet rat to Adeline and promises to visit her someday. However, her best friend advises her not to look back anymore. Nica is excited to finally leave the orphanage, which she refers to as the grave because it feels like a prison to her. She soon meets the couple, Anna and Norman Milligan. However, before the teenager leaves with them, Margaret reminds her that she's only on a trial period and that custody could potentially be revoked. Suddenly, the couple pauses upon hearing Rigel's beautiful piano playing, which reminds them of their late son Alan. Despite the headmistress's warning that he is troubled, they also decide to adopt the musician. However, Nica is secretly unhappy because she doesn't like her fellow orphan very much. While Norman shows the piano to Rigel, Anna brings Nica to her bedroom. Later, after taking his meds, the moody orphan places his tin box inside the cabinet. Suddenly, Nica enters the room asking him to cooperate to secure the adoption. In response, he advises her to stay away from him if she really wants everything to work out. During dinner, Norman asks the teenagers if they got along in the orphanage, prompting Nica to lie and say that she and Rigel are almost like siblings. The moody orphan backs up the story but suddenly touches Nica's leg under the table, prompting the uncomfortable teenager to excuse herself and head to the bathroom. There, Nica feels uncomfortable with Rigel's touch, describing him as someone charmingly toxic. Suddenly, the moody teenager appears behind her, advising that she shouldn't have run earlier. In response, Nica accuses him of toying with her and demands that he stay away from her too. She tells him that the couple will soon see his true nature, calling him a Tearsmith, a character from a legend she heard at the grave. The tale is about a world where people are devoid of emotion, so they seek out the Tearsmith, a nightmarish figure who'd give them his tears to help them release feelings of pain and anguish. That night as she sleeps, Nica dreams of her unfortunate time at the grave. She recalls confiding in Adeline, sharing her doubts about the Tearsmith's existence, believing it was just something Margaret made up to prevent them from feeling anything. However, their conversation was suddenly interrupted when Peter entered the room to alert them that Rigel was sick once again. When the curious children checked up on him, they witnessed Margaret deeply caring for their fellow orphan, which was something she didn't do for other kids. Suddenly, the dream shifts, and she sees herself being bound, prompting Nica to wake up. After preparing for school, the couple drives her and Rigel to the campus. When the teenager is about to cross, her soon-to-be brother saves her from a speeding car by pulling her to safety. On her first day of school, Nica easily becomes friends with a welcoming committee member, Billy, and her punky best friend, Mickey. However, that's not the case for Rigel, who initiates a brawl with Phelps after hearing his plan to hit on Nica. Soon, the science teacher, Mr. Kirill, steps in to stop the fight, which the other pupils also witness. When Billy asks the new student if that's her brother involved, the teenager denies it, refusing to be associated with him. That night, Anna asks Nica why Rigel didn't join them during dinner. Instead of revealing what happened at school, the teenager simply says that her soon-to-be sibling is tired. Later in the kitchen, Nica finds Rigel applying ice to his bruise. Curious, she asks him why he agreed to be adopted this time, especially since he'd always rejected previous couples who wanted him before. He explains that it wasn't his decision. When Nica asks what changed, he simply asks her to go away. Despite this, she shows concern, advising him to use a cloth and wrap it around the ice. However, he only insists that she stop touching him. The next morning, Anna instructs Nica to bring Rigel's clothes to his bedroom. When she notices that no one's in the room, the teenager tries to open the cabinet, curious about what his fellow orphan's keeping inside. However, the moody guy catches her, reminding her not to go inside his room. Shortly after, he confronts her about how she can show kindness to him despite hating him and considering him a Tearsmith. Unable to answer, Nica starts to shake, admitting that she doesn't know what he wants from her. Recognizing her her desire for a perfect fairy tale life, Rigel argues that those stories end with ever after to remind them that things never change. In response, she explains that they're not at the grave anymore and things have changed. However, the moody teenager only questions her obsession with a happy ending. He then touches her face, asking her if she's brave enough to imagine a fairy tale without a bad creature like a wolf. However, she is unable to respond. The next morning at school, Lionel tries to make a move on Nica. This sight irritates Rigel, prompting him to interrupt and glare at the male student. After school, the couple takes the orphans to town to buy them some clothes. Suddenly, Anna sees a beautiful dress in the window, so she takes Nica inside the store to try it on. The woman then compliments the teenager for her stunning look and leaves her for a while to find a belt. At that moment, Rigel gazes at Nica, prompting the uncomfortable teenager to return to the fitting room. As she tries to unzip her clothes, a mysterious hand pulls the zipper down. However, when she turns around, she's surprised to see no one. Soon, Anna returns and fastens a belt around Nica's dress. However, it only reminds the teenager of the time when she was restrained at the orphanage. Because of this, the traumatized student starts having a panic attack, worrying the couple and Rigel. At that moment, Nica's vision blurs and in her mind, she remembers Margaret, who used the orphan's fears and desires against them. She recalls the headmistress mistreating everyone except for Rigel. Nica, who's afraid of darkness, relives being sent to a dark room as a punishment. She was tied to the bed with a belt and left alone there in fear. During that unfortunate moment, she experienced comfort when someone held her hand, which she believed was Adeline. She also remembers that when interested couples visited the orphanage, Margaret would instruct her to pull down her sleeves to hide her scars. Days later, Nica finally recovers from her panic attack. That morning, she heads to Anna's greenhouse to greet the woman, who advises her to tell her anything that's bothering her. Arriving at school, the teenager learns that it's Garden Day, which Billy explains as a day when students anonymously give roses to whomever they want, with each color having a different meaning. Mickey finds a bunch of flowers in her locker while her best friend finds a white rose, recognizing it came from someone who gave it to her last year. When Nica opens her locker, she's surprised to see a black rose, which symbolizes obsessed and tormented love. The student immediately returns home to confront Rigel, assuming it came from him. However, unable to contain his feelings, he pushes her onto the bed, attempting to kiss her. Suddenly, they're interrupted when Anna calls for Nica, informing her that someone's waiting for her outside their house. She then finds Lionel at the doorstep, returning a book she left at school. He then invites her to get some ice cream and she hangs out with him. As they leave, the teenager glances at Rigel's window, seeing him looking at them disapprovingly. At the ice cream parlor, Nica shares with Lionel about losing her parents to a car accident at a young age. She reveals that her late parents used to be biologists, and instead of bedtime stories, they taught her about how cells worked. Upon seeing her keep the spoon, Lionel offers to throw it for her. However, the teenager mentions that she intends to keep it because she can use it to mend a bird's broken wing just in case. When he asks her if she can mend broken hearts as well, she admits that hearts can be complicated to repair. Soon, Lionel brings Nica home and tries to kiss her. However, the teenager rejects his attempt and says she has to go, promising to see him the next day. Entering the house, she sees Rigel catching a butterfly and releasing it. Witnessing this, she starts thinking that maybe her fellow orphan isn't evil at all and decides not to give up on him. Suddenly, the moody teenager gets a headache, prompting Nica to attend to him. However, he only yells at her, annoyed by the thought that she wants to fix him. Despite his rude attitude, Nica can't bring herself to hate him. She hopes that one day, she'll understand why Rigel acts that way. However, she can't hide the fact that he made her heart race like no other. While eating dinner, the teenager receives a video message from Lionel informing her that Rigel has beaten him up for no reason. When Nica hears Rigel returning home, she confronts him for his actions, but he only instructs her to ask Lionel. Confused and angry, she pushes him against the wall, asking him what she ever did to him. But he only tells her that she's his tearsmith. Suddenly, she realizes that he has a fever, prompting her to immediately carry him upstairs. Meanwhile, Anna and Norman, who attended a business meeting, are stuck in traffic because of the heavy rain. The concerned mother then contacts Nica, who informs her that Rigel has a fever but assures her that she can handle everything. The teenager then takes off the guy's damp clothes and helps him take the meds. Shortly after, Rigel advises her to stay and it leads to a physical moment between them. Back then, they already had a complicated relationship with each other. On Nica's first day in the orphanage, Rigel kept her necklace in his tin box, revealing that he liked her. but when Nica tried to befriend him, he tried not to let his feelings show and only asked her to go away. When Margaret caught the new girl talking to her beloved Rigel, she pulled her away and intended to punish her. To stop this, the boy intentionally harmed himself to get the matron's attention. When Adeline noticed what he did for Nica, Rigel confessed that he had feelings for the orphan. However, he pretended to hate her and wanted to keep it that way because Margaret might make her suffer more. The next morning, Nica awakens, followed by Rigel, who doesn't want to let her go. Despite this, the teenager breaks free and meets the couple who just arrived, informing them that her brother-to-be's fever has gone down. Returning to her room, Nica receives a call from Lionel but refuses to answer it. Because of the incident, she starts avoiding him at school and just spends time with her friends. The teenager tutors Mickey in science later that day. However, after her bathroom break, she catches her classmate kissing the sleeping Billy. To explain her actions, the student admits that she has feelings for her best friend, revealing that she was the one who gave her white roses every garden day. When Nica advises her to tell Billy the truth, Mickey hesitates, afraid that she might lose her best friend in the process. After shopping in town, Nica encounters Lionel, who wonders why she's avoiding him. He then admits that he likes her but wants Rigel to stop interfering. However, the teenager explains that her fellow orphan will always be a part of her life because of their shared experiences in the grave. When Nica is about to leave, Lionel blocks her way, causing her to drop her gift for Rigel, a glass ball which she hoped would remind him that he could shine like the star he was named after. When the teenager offers to replace it, she refuses, stating that it's the only one. Returning home for Rigel's birthday celebration, Nica meets her mom's guest, Dalma, and her daughter Asia, who insensitively ask her why she was at an orphanage until she turned 16. Suddenly, the doorbell rings, and when Nica opens the door, she's surprised to find her friend Adeline, whom Anna invited over. Shortly after, Anna brings in the cake and acknowledges that even though Rigel doesn't like birthdays, she still wants to celebrate because she and Norman will be formally adopting them. However, Asia, Alan's ex-girlfriend, disapproves of this, thinking that the couple's trying to replace their late son. Anna defends that she still remembers him but wants to move on. A moment later, Adeline advises her best friend not to get caught up in other people's problems. However, Nica feels like she doesn't fit in with her new family because the couple doesn't know what she really went through. She is afraid that if the couple knew about what happened, she'd be seen as ugly and broken. In response, Adeline brings up their fellow orphan Peter, who thinks they should press charges against Margaret. When Nica declines, Adeline reminds her that her testimony is important because she suffered the most. However, the teenager finds herself unable to face the strict matron. Suddenly, their conversation's interrupted when Anna informs Nica that their guests have left. Adeline then excuses herself to leave as well. After that, the mother apologizes to her adoptive daughter because of Asia's behavior earlier. Outside, Adeline speaks with Rigel, who admits that he was only there because he wanted to be with Nica. However, he knows that Nica always wanted a family and he doesn't want to take that away from her. That night, Nica sits beside Rigel while he's playing the piano, apologetic for not being able to get him a gift. When he states that it doesn't matter, Nica offers to give him anything he wants. He then asks her to stay still and attempts to kiss her. Suddenly, their moment's interrupted when the doorbell rings. When Nica checks the visitor, it turns out to be Lionel, who worries about her being with Rigel. When she advises him to leave, he pulls her close and attempts to kiss her, but she backs away and returns to the house. Nica then approaches Rigel again, but he only tells her to leave and go back to Lionel. However, she only stands in front of him, prompting him to initiate a physical moment. Strangely, when Nica mentions that she wants to be with him, he backs off and instructs her to go back to bed. Before she leaves the room, Rigel informs her that even if she keeps deluding herself, things won't change because they're both broken and damaged. But Nica only sees it as a reason why they fit together. However, he points out that she deserves a normal life just like she always wanted. When she insists that she's happy because they're together, he admits that he'll only hurt her. Because of this, Rigel talks to Anna the next morning, informing her of his decision to reject the adoption. Meanwhile, Nica spends time with her friends. Billy reveals that Phelps admitted that he was her anonymous rose giver. Hearing this, Mickey interjects, confessing that it was her because she was in love with her. Shocked by the revelation, her best friend walks out. That night, Nica attends the school dance. She first approaches Billy, who appears better but doesn't want to talk about what happened earlier. Suddenly, Lionel approaches her. The student apologizes for his behavior the previous days and admits he has a big crush on her. As a peace offering, he invites her to dance. Meanwhile, after his talk with Anna, Rigel packs his bags and intends to return to the orphanage, leaving the tin box in his bedroom for Nica. However, when he's on the bridge, he decides to turn back and head to the school to see her for the last time. During the dance, Nica gets dizzy and Lionel offers her to go somewhere quiet. He takes her to an empty classroom where he attempts to take advantage of her. Fortunately, Rigel arrives in time to stop the student, causing him to run off. He then approaches Nica and they finally admit their feelings for each other, leading to a romantic moment between them. Afterward, the couple leaves the school and suddenly encounters Lionel on the bridge. The student then threatens to expose them and tell everyone about the relationship, advising that Rigel should only see Nica as his sister. Fuming, Lionel gets into his vehicle and accelerates in an attempt to hit the couple, who have to leap off the bridge to save themselves. The next morning, Nica awakens to find Adeline, who informs her that they were brought to the hospital because of a bad accident. At that moment, the teenager finally remembers that it was Rigel holding her hand when she was punished in the dark cellar. Soon, Nica learns from the doctor that her fellow orphan is in a coma, which is complicated by the neuronomas in his brain. Anna then informs her that Rigel rejected the adoption, which puts him under Margaret's care again. The mother then gives her adoptive daughter the tin box, where she finds her butterfly necklace. Realizing that Rigel really cares for her, Nica pleads to be taken to see him. Then, she encounters the matron who only blames her for ruining the orphan's life. To help Rigel break free from Margaret, the teenager finally agrees to press charges against her. However, during the trial, Peter chickens out while testifying, denying Margaret's abuses. When Nica takes the stand the following day, the lawyer questions her why Rigel turned down the adoption to go back to a harsh environment. In response, the teenager explains that only Rigel didn't get beaten because he was like a son to Margaret. Aside from confessing her romantic feelings for her fellow orphan, Nica points out that Rigel also hated Margaret. Hearing this, the lawyer intimidates her, accusing that she's the only one who really hates the matron. Feeling uncomfortable, Nica excuses herself and goes to the bathroom, trying to calm herself down. When she looks at the mirror, she sees her younger self staring right back at her. Soon, Anna arrives and advises her not to give up. After feeling better, Nica continues to testify, explaining that she calls their orphanage the grave and reveals that every day they were tortured while Rigel watched, unable to help them. The teenager blames Margaret for convincing Rigel that he's a heartless monster like her. She asserts that her fellow orphan is capable of giving and receiving love. She also speaks for the others who are too intimidated and too terrified to speak against the matron. After her testimony, the people applaud her statement, convinced that Margaret is guilty of her wrongdoing. Following this, she immediately visits the unconscious Rigel, sharing that they won the case and the matron couldn't hurt them anymore. As tears fall down her face, she calls him her Tearsmith, telling him that she loves him more than anything. Suddenly, Rigel wakes up and looks at her tearfully. Reflecting on everything, Nica realizes that since they met at the orphanage, he's always been there for her, keeping her safe. Years pass and the two orphans finally break free from their dark past's hold. Nica understands that the true fairy tale lies within a person's heart as she and Rigel find happiness together, raising their daughter.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this, turn on notifications and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.